One of the Red Sox former top prospects sustained another injury, and this one could spell the end of his time in the Red Sox organization. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Red Seat Radio. My name is Corbin, and just a heads up, if you hear some background noises in this video, my neighbor's doing construction on his house, and there's only so much I could do about the noise in the background, so I apologize if there's any of that in this video. But at one point, Bryan Mata was one of the top prospects in the Red Sox organization. In fact, as early as April last year, Bryan Mata was ranked as the #1 pitching prospect in our organization and the #5 prospect overall throughout the organization, at least according to Sox prospects. But a lot can change in a year. In fact, we're at the point now where with this latest injury to Bryan Mata, there's a very legitimate chance that he's not even in the Red Sox organization to start 2024. So what we're going to do in today's video is we're going to break this all down. We're going to talk about what injury Bryan Mata sustained, how long he could be out for, and what the timeline on that looks like. Plus, we're going to talk about what the impact of an injury like this could have on both Bryan Mata's future as well as the Boston Red Sox. But before we get into that, we are going to be live tonight on this channel right around 7 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to be talking about all the latest goings on with the Red Sox in spring training. We're going to talk about all of that. We're going to talk about everything going on with the Red Sox in the free agent market as well as the trade market. And of course, we'll be giving our weekly update on where the Red Sox are with Jordan Montgomery. So if you're interested in that, right here on this channel, 7 p.m. Eastern time tonight. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one. Let's get into it. Okay, so let's start by breaking down the actual injury first before we get into the true impact this could possibly have and why it's such a big deal that this injury occurred. The injury itself was announced on February 25th, which was this Sunday, by Alex Cora, who told media in a presser Bryan Mata had pulled a hamstring and was going to be sidelined for a little bit. Now, the exact injury isn't super clear. Pulled hamstring could mean a whole lot of things. The most detailed explanation of this injury that I could find came from Julian McWilliams of the Boston Globe, where he labeled it as a hamstring strain, which to me is a little bit different than just a pulled hamstring, because a strain essentially means you tore the muscle a little bit. But there are different grades to this. You can go from grade 1 to grade 3. Basically, grade 1 is a slight tear and grade 3 is a full tear of a muscle. And there's a big window in terms of how long he's going to be out within those tears, right? And if we look at past examples, we can kind of put a little bit of a timeline together. If it is just a grade 1 tear, you're probably looking at something like what James Paxton had done last year, where he had also sustained a pulled hamstring that turned into a grade 1 hamstring strain and kept him out of Major League Baseball for an entire month. He injured it on March 3rd and did not appear in games until May 17th. That's a long window of time to miss. So while we don't know exactly what Bryan Mata's injury is, whether it even is a strain, whether it's just a pulled muscle and he's only going to need a couple weeks off his feet, or it could be a strain and he could end up missing an entire month of the regular season. And this is pretty big news. It's pretty high impact stuff. The reason it's so high impact, even though he hasn't played a game in Major League Baseball yet, is because Bryan Mata is also completely out of options. Basically, what this means is that the Red Sox either have to make the decision to put him on the 26-man roster or DFA him and hope he clears waivers. Essentially saying that if Bryan Mata is not on the 26-man roster this year, every other team in Major League Baseball now has the opportunity to pick him up and bring him into their club, which makes things extremely complicated for the Red Sox, because over the last couple of years, Bryan Mata has been pretty rocky. He has dealt with a multitude of injuries that has kept him off the field for a pretty significant chunk of time. He missed the entire 2021 season, but in 2022, when he was working his way back up, he actually looked really solid, posting a just 2.49 ERA in 19 games, 18 of those being starts, with a 1.277 whip and 11.4 K per 9. However, he then got injured again going into the 2023 season that sidelined him for most of the season, and when he came back, he was a bit of a different pitcher. At the AAA level last year, he had a 6.33 ERA in 9 games and 7 starts, with a much lower 9.3 K per 9 and a really bloated 10 even walks per 9, leading to an extremely high 2.185 whip. The combination of his injury history, his walk rate, and consistency issues have led the Red Sox to believe that he's more suited for a bullpen style role. In fact, Greg Breslow came out this winter and said as Bryan Mata begins and gets ready for the season, they're going to be putting him strictly as a bullpen player, but that doesn't mean that their expectations for what Mata could be weren't super high. He's still only 25 years old. He still has that high velocity fastball paired with that off-speed mix of a slider, changeup, and curveball. He has a ton of swing and miss potential, and his ceiling right now is something of a very high leverage late inning arm to a mid-inning sort of bulk inning reliever that could be super useful in the Red Sox bullpen, especially if they don't end up with another starter, because then you're going to have to take one of Wink, Whitlock, or Houck out of this bullpen and put it into this rotation, creating a hole in the bullpen that Bryan Mata would have been really interesting to see fill. It felt like in 2024 we were finally going to be able to see what Bryan Mata could do at the major league level. We've been excited about him for a while. There have been all these ups and downs, and it finally felt like, hey, we were going to see what he was actually made of in a big league uniform. But now everything gets super complicated because not only is Bryan Mata hurt, but you also have a ton of non-roster invitees coming into spring training trying to earn that same exact spot. So there's a ton of different potential options for them to go outside of Bryan Mata, but you also have another similar situation on this team with Justin Slayton, who isn't out of options due to injury, but he was a Rule 5 pickup. So if he's not on the 26-man roster the entire year, he gets returned to his team. The Red Sox now have a multitude of options that could replace Bryan Mata, making this decision really interesting for the Red Sox because there's two options here. Do you go with Bryan Mata, the guy who you've had in your system for a while, whose potential is super high, who is still super young and has a ton of control? Do you take that potential yet not really knowing what you're going to get at the major league level because you can't even get him into spring training games? Or do you go with someone who's earned their spot? Do you go with a guy, either a non-roster invitee or someone on the 40-man roster like Justin Slayton or some of these other guys like Isaiah Campbell, Greg Weissert, or anything like that, who now have the opportunity to play these major league games and show what they are capable of? Going into 2024, it's a really interesting decision. Do you go with potential but no experience, or do you go with a lower ceiling potential guy who does have some experience now, who's been able to show you what he can do? In my opinion, if I'm the Boston Red Sox, I think I go with the guy who shows the experience. We've seen it in the past with guys like John Schreiber and Brennan Bernardino, where they've been able to impress in spring training and then go into really critical roles in the Red Sox bullpen and really help them out. Spring training is sort of a perfect situation to have this battleground for relievers, and if you can't even attend the battle, it's difficult for me to prioritize you over someone who is able to be on this battleground and win out, right? Obviously, Bryan Mata has all this potential, but if you can't show it, that's a big problem. But I think ultimately what this is going to come down to from a Red Sox point of view is how long he's actually sidelined for. This is another injury on top of a multitude of injuries that have come over the last couple of years, and that's something that they're going to have to pay super close attention to. But if Bryan Mata's out for only a couple of weeks and you could still get him in 2 spring training games by the time the season starts, I still think there's a pretty good chance he ends up on the 26-man roster. The Baileys and the Breslows of the world love that sort of high velo potential with that wipeout pitch. Bryan Mata has a ton of that. If they could get his command under control to the point where they believe he could pitch at the big league level, I think he still makes this roster, mostly because he's still young. Again, he still has that potential. And 3, he also has a ton of control. You get him up to the big league level, he's got 6 years before he can even sniff free agency, which is something the Red Sox have really tried to highlight this offseason. But if he is out for an extended period of time, if it takes him a month or two to make his way back to the Boston Red Sox, to Major League Baseball for the first time in his career, I could see the Red Sox going a different route. They want to have this bullpen solidified. Breslow, Bailey, Willard, the guy from Driveline are trying to transform the Red Sox pitching. I don't know if they take a chance on saying, okay, we can be one arm short in the bullpen for the beginning of the season in hopes that Bryan Mata can be what we think he could be in the bullpen without seeing a single thing this spring. And so, in my opinion, this very realistically could spell the end of Bryan Mata in a Red Sox uniform. If they DFA him, I have no doubt in my mind that someone's going to pick him up. Even with the injury history, if it's a completely free player, a team's going to take a chance on him because of that potential, because of his age, and because of that control. And it's super interesting to me to see a guy who was a number one prospect at one point, at least in terms of pitching within the Red Sox farm system, to go from that to not even possibly seeing any big league time with the Red Sox is a really dramatic turn of events in just a singular year. But it goes to show you the best ability is availability, and this is a prime example in Bryan Mata. But that's just my opinion. So let me know in the comment section down below, what do you think? One, what do you think of this injury and how long do you think he'll be out for? But two, what do you think this means for the Red Sox and for Bryan Mata? Does it spell the end of Mata in a Red Sox uniform? Let me know what your thoughts are on the latest Red Sox injury news in the comment section down below. Don't forget, we are going to be live on this channel tonight right around 7 p.m. Eastern time, talking all things Red Sox, getting you ready for the 2024 season. So make sure you stop on by. If you made it to the end here, make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. We talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. Really does help these videos out a ton, and it really would mean a lot to me. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one, and I will see you in the red seats.